Greetings, travelers. I'm Josh,
And I'm Kai,
and we're the Genshin
guys.
Guys. Welcome all. This podcast is for fans of Genshin Impact, the mobile game made by Hoyoverse, formerly known as MiHoYo. Here we talk about our opinions, experiences, and dreams about Genshin Impact. We have new episodes every Monday, so if you like our show, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Music, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to the podcast. So before we get started, Kahi, how are you doing today?
Doing good. I am loving this cold weather. I'm getting much better sleep now. Having more frequent days off instead of working 6 days in a row, like how it's been for the last 2.5 weeks. They finally fixed that schedule, so I'm good. Good today. How about you, Josh? How are you?
Yeah, I'm good as well. I've been I've been playing. Actually, I've been playing a lot of mobile games, but I've been working, and my work situation is changing. So it's gonna be interesting. I'm gonna have to keep up with it, but I'm gonna make sure to make time for the podcast and Genshin, of course. So that being said, let's get started by introducing today's topics. Today we're going to be mostly talking about the Archon Quest. So hopefully you finished it by now. If you have not, I will tell you when we will start the discussion so that you can skip it. I will put the timestamp in the description. But our topics today in order: our week in Genshin, Genshin news, Archon Quest, and then community discussion, as always. Now, let's get started quickly because there's a lot we want to talk about during the Archon Quest. But first of all, my week in Genshin. Kahi, how has your week in Genshin been?
So, I had more than enough to get a guaranteed 5-star for Nahida. And I think I told you this earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
I finally got my first 5-star since the banner came out, and it's freaking Tainari. So I have put him at the bottom of my roster lists. No artifacts. The grayest, greenest weapon I can ever find. I am keeping him at level 1. He is not going to get any
Don't be like that.
ascensions or levels.
At least he's a
No,
new character,
no.
Dendro character. Come on, he's so fun.
I will use Kale if I need a Dendro bow user. He ruined my pity for Nahida. So I'm keeping him down there because I finally got Nahida after $50. So I am just going to save for Dea, and then I'm going to put that nightmare behind me. Other than that, I've also been leveling. Oh, I got my Nahida to level 90 today, which is great.
Oh, congrats.
Her elemental mastery is at like 600, and that's with like the free Mapamare
Nice.
catalyst. I might switch it out for Widsith, but I don't want to level up another Widsith because I have Widsith on Yaimiko, which is probably better, arguably.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'll keep this one for now. I don't really think I need her 5-star weapon because I have a weapon. I don't need it to be a little strong. I don't need that little extra power. I just like having the character itself. But then I'm also, because of all the other characters they announced, I'm trying to level up my Hazo, because if they're doing anything to Animal later on, I still want to level up Hazo because his fighting style is really cool. And I got him to level 80-ish. Yeah, level 80, and he has about 1900 attack, 150 crit damage, and like, I think 40 crit percentage. And he's doing really well on like a full-on like melee team with Chi-Chi. Who else is on the team? Xingqiu and Kuki. And it's just great. I just need to find a way to just get his cooldowns really low. Maybe I gotta put another animal character with him. But yeah, that's pretty much my week in Genshin. Obviously the story, which is what we're gonna talk about today. But yeah, just saving up for the next big character coming out later on. Anything that you are doing in your teams lately? Anything that you are prepping for? Did you get Nahida or no?
Yeah, so I got really lucky. I got Nahida after like 50 pulls. And I won 50-50 for like the 5th time in a row. So oh
my gosh.
my luck is gonna run out eventually, right? So I'm assuming it's gonna run out with Scaramouche, but yeah. So Nahida, I got her to 80. I'm working on getting her to 90. I'm also leveling up Toma because I want to use him in like a Burgeon comp. And yeah, I've been trying to farm artifacts for Nahida. I cannot get good drops for the Dendro set for Elemental Mastery. But I've also been seeing some interesting comps that use her with a Gilded Dream set, so that's good because I have some good Gilded Dream set stuff. But yeah, other than that, oh, by the way, with Heizo, my Heizo team is Heizo, Kazuha, Shincho, and Shunha. So like kind of like similar to yours, but like yeah, like freezing them is good because then they don't get pushed around when you punch them. They just like take the hit.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
I've been using that kind of recently as well. Kind of forgot about Heizo because like Dendro came out and I really do enjoy playing Heizo. So it's just collecting the bugs is kind of like whatever for me. It's they're everywhere, so it's not easy to farm them in the same sense as it is easy to farm like some other stuff. But yeah, so I finished story. I finished Nahida's quest, her story quest as well, which we will not talk about this week, but we'll talk about next week. And I've been just farming resources and trying to be as efficient with resin as possible because my goal is still to get every character to 80 and then eventually to 90. So I'm just trying to do what I can to farm and using up resin when I feel like playing a little bit more. Using up fragile resins. Fragile resins? Yeah, the moon shaped things. For when I feel like sitting down and playing for a while. But yeah, other than that, I've been having a lot of fun. The story quest was amazing, and we're going to talk about that today in our later segment. So moving on to Genshin news. So in Genshin news, we have birthdays. Of course, we have a birthday to celebrate. November 2nd, Xiangling, the first character I C6'd, not on purpose. She just kept showing up. I really love Xiangling and her design, and obviously she's like a foodie, so that's really cool. And then we also have the drip marketing for Farzan and Scaramouche, right? So really, really excited. Like you said, animo characters
What did
getting a
you
little
say?
bit of an
Farazan and
overhaul.
who?
Scaramouche,
Oh, I think you mean the Wanderer.
the Wanderer. I'm sorry.
He's
Right,
marketed officially.
right. Okay, sorry. The
I wonder what that's.
Wanderer.
I wonder what the story behind that is. Yeah,
Well,
that must be a lore implication.
yeah, because like we still call child. Oh, we call child, right? Not Tartaglia. Or no, it is Tartaglia,
Yeah,
right?
that's what we know him as. Well,
Okay,
his Schneidernayan name is Tartaglia.
right.
Wait, no,
His
his harbinger name is
yeah.
Tartaglia,
Oh yeah, yeah. But like
and
in the
then
game,
child
in the
his given
game,
name.
it says Tartaglia because he's still a harbinger. So maybe he's still a harbinger, but we can play as him. But maybe Scaramouche renounces his harbinger name, and maybe he just becomes the Wanderer. Who knows?
Oh, that could be
Yeah,
it.
because
Because I know Rosaline was Senora.
right. But I mean, like in the game, like when you're looking at characters, like it says their names. It says Tartaglia, not Child. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And in other news, the Adventure Trials events co-op, like the co-op event that is going on right now, is available. So you can all the characters are trial characters, so you don't have to have any characters. They give you the characters that you use for the event. So that's really great. And then we also have the Genius Invocation TCG coming soon. I'm super super excited for this. I was just talking to Kahi. I play on the Asia server, and Kahi plays on the America server. So if I want to play this game with Kahi, I have to level up my American account ASAP. So I'm gonna be working on that
Rip.
as soon as I can. And yeah, so I'm really excited for this TCG thing. I love TCGs, like digital TCGs. So that should be fun. And one quick thing I wanted to share from the Twitter is the Tevat Times Volume 5. So it's since Sumeru update, they've released some stats that were gathered from across all the servers except China, I believe. And if we look here, it says things like, "Hello, traveler. During your trip to Sumeru, many interesting things have happened. In addition, you've also experienced many highlights during the Wineless Fest in Mondstadt. Lucky for you, Paimon has recorded all these moments. Come take a look." So let's see. After the release of this is funny. After the release of version 3.0, the Statue of Seven in Sumeru was first unlocked by a traveler from the Asia server. That's interesting. So like the first person who unlocked the Statue of Seven in Sumeru was from Asia server, which makes sense because I'm pretty sure Asia server comes out a little bit before America. So, um,
Yeah.
and then let's see. So the Our data reveals that 632,994 travelers were defeated by angry sumpter beasts. And
Wait, really?
yeah, and I think that's because
It's
like
possible? Okay.
they're so like if you're standing in the wrong place, like if there's something behind you and they charge at you, you get animation locked. You just get hit like
You get stuck, yeah.
and then you can die if you don't have
I've
a.
only seen that, but wow.
Yeah, it's happened to
I've
me, but I've
never
never
had that
died.
happen.
I don't think I've died from that. So that's funny. And then there's
I
like,
know there's like a pack of them.
oh yeah, but it's just kind of like, I don't know. They're honestly, I've never thought that they were even like a threat until like that happened to me randomly once. I was like, I didn't even know they could attack you because I always kill them before they have a chance. But look at
Mhm.
this, red vultures. So I think this is like a thing in the desert. Red vultures have recently become a favorite target for archery enthusiasts. According to our survey, an average of 1,478,553 red vultures are shot down every day.
I had a feeling a lot of people were gonna try that because when they're flying, the only way you can knock them down is, of course, you got to use a bow, and everyone's gonna be like, "I want to try.
That's
I
so
want to try and
funny.
choose if I can just knock one down." And some people found the formula already. I know,
So
or
good,
the
right?
technique.
Um, Another one was when exploring the desert, did you see the tumbleweed drifting in the desert? 81.37% of travelers chose to break them, which allowed them to obtain the achievement drifting in the wind. That's great. Yeah, of course you want to break those. Why wouldn't you want to break those?
I think I got that. Yeah, I think
Um,
okay. I probably ran into mine.
One traveler seemed to be very passionate about breaking tumbleweed, destroying 294 of them in one day. I like how they mentioned it says it doesn't say like travelers. It says a traveler seemed to be very passionate about breaking. Like they probably saw this
A
number.
single
They
one.
probably saw this number and were like, "What the heck was this person doing? Let's call them out in this table at
An
times."
extreme outlier.
That's so funny. Like probably the next one was probably like 20 or something, and then this guy just like 294 of them. That's so great. Many travelers have attempted to enter the gigantic robot in the desert. However, you are never safe from danger on your journey. Paimon's investigation reveals that, unfortunately, 349,337 travelers were defeated by the lasers fired by the gigantic robot. Dang. That's pretty great.
I usually stay away from that robot because I don't really have a reason to go there yet. I mean, I got the few little dendroculus that was over there, but yeah, I don't really need to go there right now.
Same. And I'll just mention this last one. There's a bunch more if you want to look at it. It's on their Twitter. But do you remember the wineless fest in Mondstadt event?
Yeah.
There was the one minigame event that was like find those like hidden treasure chests hidden by the NPCs, right? Or hidden by just the characters.
Oh yeah.
It says,
Yeah.
according to our statistics, in the first phase of that event, 43% of travelers found all of them in less than 15 minutes. Like all of the first 8. So that's an interesting statistic.
Within the first 15 minutes.
Yeah. So like you know how like it came out and then
no, I misread that. Yeah.
yeah, the first phase of the event. So like there's like 3 phases of that event where like you do the first 8 and then you unlock the next ones and you unlock the next ones. The first one, 43% of travelers found all 8 of them in like less than 15 minutes, which is great because they're pretty easy, but it's just an interesting statistic to have. Like they probably have something that's like, how long from starting the quest did it take for the traveler to find this thing? And I'm kind of surprised by that. So cool. So anyway, Teyvat Times Volume 5,
I believe it. Yeah.
pretty interesting. Yeah, I definitely believe that for sure. Teyvat Times Volume 5 is really interesting. I would say check it out on their Twitter if you are interested in just seeing some of these like stat numbers across the entire player base, basically, excluding China. And yeah, so that is the Genshin news. So there is one last thing that we want to mention before we end the news section, before we start talking about the Archon Quest, which is a comment posted by a Redditor named Friendly Cockroach 52 said their topic was, is it okay to main Chi-Chi? And then the description says, many people say that she is a bad character and many people dislike her, but I main Chi-Chi and I'm starting to wonder if it's really okay. So this goes back to this meta versus fun discussion that we had in the past. Kahi, what do you think about this discussion, this statement?
Um, what what really got to me about this one is that it's a person. I'm fairly certain this person isn't just posting as a joke, but this person feels like it is wrong to main a character that is typically looked down upon in the group. Here's the thing about a meta. When people all start talking about a meta or this is the most effective, this is the strongest, you have to use, they start to feel like they have to use these particular characters. But then when people who have no idea what the meta is and just genuinely play for fun are playing a fun character, are they receiving any kind of remarks that they shouldn't be? Are they in this particular situation where they're looking at their gameplay style as generally frowned upon as well? This is the a big problem with how people look and try to, I guess, overcomplicate a game or try to take it too seriously than what it is built for. You start to infect the thinking process of someone else and how they're playing the game. If I take a game too seriously and I frown upon people who aren't taking it as seriously as me, I'm basically making them feel bad for them playing how they want to play. It goes back to this whole thing about why people play games in the first place. You have to look at a game as fun first. If it ain't fun, stop playing. But if you have a person who wants to main a character and thinks that it's wrong or has some kind of apprehension, some kind of reservation that should I because other people tell me I shouldn't, or I want to because I want to, they're they themselves are being less likely to play how they want and find their own fun because other people aren't having fun because they're mad about the game. You see, like this is like a manifestation of people being overly influenced by people who are taking the game too seriously and who are playing the game for some other, I don't know, other overcomplicated reason. If I'm trying to play a game to have fun and I want to feel like I'm playing the game that how I want, it's all, it goes into this whole circle all over again. People are mad that there's no end game. It doesn't really matter all that much because there's other reasons to play the game. If you can't find one, you do not have to stick with it. If you, friendly cockroach, if you want to main Chi Chi, please do it. And really do not listen to anyone who tells you no for whatever reason. Because the game can be played by one character throughout the entire thing, and you can basically get through every quest with one character. So don't let people tell you that, oh no, you're playing the game wrong. There's no wrong way to play the game. You have a guy who's literally hunting tumbleweeds. there's no there's no wrong way to play this game. But this it's just sad that you have people trying to genuinely ask, am I doing the wrong thing even though I'm having fun? It's kind of concerning to me. But that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree definitely in that, like, you can play this game in so many different ways. Like, I think that the only thing that could be even considered remotely the wrong way to play a game is if you just keep doing something and you keep dying and you can't progress. I guess that's the only way I would even consider the wrong way of playing the game. But other than that, like, you can do whatever you want. Like, you can play any character, you can use any ability, you can not use any abilities. It's like you can, enjoy the game. Like you said, if you want to do tumbleweeds, like this game especially is like getting more and more diverse in the things you can do. So like you can fish. Soon you're going to be able to play a trading card game in game with your friends. There's events where you just get trial characters and you don't even have to have any characters to participate, and you can do co-op, and there's so many things you can do. And I think that it definitely is not good for the community, especially newcomers to the community, if we're like basically bad talking or bad mouthing anybody's choice of character, because there's something for everybody, and I think that that's a really important mentality to have. And I agree that it makes me feel like um, it makes me feel bad for the people who just want to play a character and other people are telling them they can't do it, or play a certain way and other people are telling them they shouldn't. So yeah, I think we got to remember that it is a game that is supposed to be fun, and I think that, to be honest, compared to other games, even by the same company, Honkai and soon to come Zenless Zone Zero and Honkai Star Rail, like there are different games for different people as well. So if Genshin isn't doing what you want it to do for you, then you can go play a different game. But I don't see any reason to impede on someone else's enjoyment of the game because of your own opinions. And that just seems like it's bad for the community at large. So yeah, so that's how we feel about this topic. Definitely, friendly cockroach, feel free to play Chi-Chi, and anybody out there, if you're wondering if it's okay for you to play a character, if it's okay for you to build a certain way or to have a certain team, feel free to. And if you're, of course, struggling with in-game content or something, it's always also okay to ask for support and advice. But what you choose to do with that information afterwards is up to you. So definitely hope everybody is out there having fun playing Genshin and it not becoming a stressful experience, especially to be in the community, because I feel like this community is one of the most wholesome when it comes to a lot of different aspects of Genshin. So that's our 2 cents on that situation. So that is our Genshin news segment for today. Next, we're going to go into our main section, the Archon Quest discussion, and we will be talking about spoilers for the story. So if you have not yet completed the story, I recommend that you go do that before listening to this podcast, before listening to this section. And if you have not yet done it, but you still want to listen to us talk about Genshin, like, we will be, of course, doing another episode next week. But after this section, we will talk quickly about the community discussion from last week. So if you asked a question, you want to hear our response to it, feel free to skip this section, which I will put the timestamp in the description, and then you can hear it and then come back and listen to this section once you have finished the Archon Quest. Okay, and this is just the Archon Quest, not Nahida Story Quest, so feel free to finish the Nahida Quest at a later date, but I would say, as soon as you can, finish the Archon Quest so that you do not get spoiled anywhere else. So all right,
Please,
so that is
I'm begging you.
Yes, that it is so good. So that is our spoiler warning. You have been warned. Feel free to pause the podcast now and go play it, and then come back. That is also a thing. So great, let's get started. So let's talk about the Archon Quest, Chapter 3, Act 5. Akasha pulses, the Kalpa flame rises from Genshin Impact, and we will talk really quickly. I will just summarize what happened in this Archon Quest, and then we will start talking about our takeaways and interesting lore bombs that were dropped and our opinions and thoughts on that as well. So this is going to be a pretty lore-heavy discussion, so sit tight and let's learn together. Okay, so first part of the Archon Quest is the quest titled Through the Pre-Dawn Night. So there's 5 subsections, 5 sub-quests within this quest. And Through the Pre-Dawn Night, just as a quick summary, is the plan that Alhaitham, Sino, Dea, and the Traveler have discussed is started to be acted on. And the first major part of the plan was getting the Eremites into Sumeru. So trying to sneak them in through Sino's authority as the General Mahamatra. And we kind of get we don't get told the plan right away. We kind of have this sort of non-linear progression where we're going through the plan and then we're getting a flashback of when they talked about the plan. And it keeps things interesting for sure. So this beginning part ends with getting the Eremites successfully into Sumeru. Now the second subquest, which is As by a God's Side, we talk about Tanari's encounter with Dottore. We see a flashback of that happening. We see Dea's encounter with Dottore. You and Dea are following Dottore. He spots you at the dock in Port Ormos, and you basically know that he knows what you're up to. Later, you see the Balladeer through Balladeer's connected consciousness. He's talking to you, but Paimon sees you kind of just zoning out and talking to nobody, but actually Balladeer is talking to you and confronting you. And then he gets angry, and Tanari gets struck by lightning because that the Balladeer creates, and is kind of out of commission for like the next half of the quest. But the plan is proceeding. The plan is proceeding pretty well. And Nilu is the doctor leaves Sumeru, and Nilu is recruited into the team, into the plan, which was kind of part of the plan in the first place, but it ends up working out anyway for them. Now, part 3 is Jagarbade. I don't know. So, this day is the day that the Academia, annually, I believe, puts more information into the Akasha terminal. They update the information into the Akasha terminal. It's a big deal. Now, during this day, you go with Al-Haytham to confront Azar, the Grand Sage, who is the leader of the scheming of creating a god using the Balladeer. And you confront him. You and Al-Haytham and Paimon put on this act that makes it seem like Azar is in control, but actually everything is according to plan. You go into a kind of jail cell that's near Nihida and near the sanctuary of Sarastara, and you are able to connect to Nihida and wake her up through your connected consciousness. What I really love about this scene, by the way, is that like the traveler has like fully actual voiced lines, which is super cool. And I really, really hope that they do that more. Yeah, he's Nihida!
Complete opposite from his quiet, like silence.
So what's funny is I did this quest with my wife side by side, and she has Lumine and I have Aether, and so Aether is like actually just screaming at the top of his lungs, but Lumine's not. So like Lumine's like,
oh what?
Lumine's like Nahida, but then Aether's like Nahida. Like it's really really intense. But anyway, it was interesting to see it both ways. And so yeah, you wake up Nahida, or you wake up Nahida, reach to her consciousnness. Nilu, as part of the plan, does a dance outside of the academia to distract the guards. And there's this whole thing about Al-Haytham putting false information into the Akasha. And then Sino confronts Azar at the sanctuary where Nahida was held. And basically, Sino shows his scary side, which is pretty cool. And then the next quest is Where the Boat of Consciousness Lies. Now, you go back to the Sanctuary of Sarastana with Nahida and go through this like passage to reach to where the Balladeer is, and then you fight him, right? And you fight Scaramouche, or as he is known as the everlasting Lord of Arcane Wisdom, and you take the Gnosis from him. And you defeat him. You take the Gnosis from him. He gets you get like a little bit of a sympathy moment for him, but ultimately he is the bad guy. And then he what's it called? And then you enter Lord Rukkhadevata's last memory using the, what does it says? It says, You managed to defeat Shoki no Kami with Nahida's help. She walks forward and takes the Gnosis away from the Balladeer. Having lost the Gnosis, which now houses all of his strong obsessions, the Balladeer falls out of his giant mechanical shell in despair and drops to the ground. Now, with the power of another Gnosis in her hands, Nahida can finally understand the final memory of Greater Lord Rukkhadevata. A divine knowledge capsule materializes in her hand. This is the last memory of the Greater Lord. And so, you together enter this knowledge capsule. It's like a sort of different space where this knowledge capsule is, and you travel on the boat of consciousness and make your way to the memory of Irminsul, where Greater Lord Rukkhadevata left her consciousness as a last part of her consciousness to keep back the corruption that was harming Irminsul. And your job is to get rid of this last memory of her to be able to, or Nahida has to get rid of this last memory of Greater Lord Rukkhadevata so that she can finally cleanse Irminsul of the corruption, which is now tied to Greater Lord Rukkhadevata's last like pieces of consciousness. And so it's kind of abstract and kind of confusing, I think, at first, but as you were going through it, it sort of makes sense that that Greater Lord Rukkhadevata sacrificed everything she had to stop this corruption from spreading, and the only person that can finish this job is the reincarnated version of herself, which looks the same, by the way, which also implies that they are kind of actually the same. But there is a lot of difficulty in Nahida trying to process what she wants to do, because if she does this, if she cleanses the Irminsul of the memory of Greater Lord Rukkhadevata, everyone will forget her. It is like the Greater Lord Rukkhadevata never existed. And so with a lot of crying and hugging, Nahida does what she has to do, and she erases Greater Lord Rukkhadevata and her memory from Irminsul, clearing the world of Elazar and fixing Irminsul, right? And so I think this does not affect the withering spaces that are around. There's still more to this story, I think.
Yeah,
but
I thought that was weird.
Right?
Yeah,
I think there's more.
there.
We still have that one area too that's like blocked off that has like all the withering stuff coming from it. So, that might be something in the future, but for now, Elazar is gone. And like everyone has forgotten Greater Lord Rukkhadevata. There's like a sort of different memory, a different history that everyone seems to remember now. Instead of Greater Lord Rukkhadevata dying and being reincarnated, everyone seems to remember that Greater Lord, that Kusanali, or they just say Lesser Lord Kusanali. I don't know why they say Lesser Lord Kusanali if there's no Greater Lord, but they
like the honorific's still there.
Yeah, I don't know if there's some like translation thing for that or something, but basically they just remember Kusanali and how she got kind of captured and stopped by the sages, but and then like kind of like disowned by the people because of stuff that happened before, but they don't remember anything about Greater Lord Rukkhadevata, except the Traveler does. So, and their explanation for this, in a way, is that, or at least Traveler's understanding of the explanation for this, is because Traveler's not from this world. He's not tied, or she is not tied to Irminsul the same way that everybody else in Tevat is. And so Traveler retains the memory of everything that happened exactly how it happened, including with Greater Lord Rukkhadevata, but even Nahida herself does not remember. Now, Paimon also does not remember, implying that Paimon is tied to Irminsul and that Paimon is also from Tevat, which is what we know, but at the same time, a lot of people, are suspicious of Paimon because we don't know anything about her history or background, but she also does not remember, supposedly. She could be acting, but we don't think so. At this point. And so as soon after that whole thing happens with the memory erased, Traveler's thinking about telling Nahida about Greater Lord Rukkhadevata, but is struck by a weapon that was produced by the Academia that Dottore has, and him and Paimon are knocked unconscious while Dottore has a one-to-one conversation with Nahida about a lot of things regarding the lore of the world, which we're going to talk about in a second. And that is the end of the fourth part of the Archon Quest. And then we move on to the last part, which is a toast to victory. So you were knocked out unconscious. You were brought by, I believe, Sino back to Tanari's medical hut where you first started. And you are being treated by Kole. It's been a couple days. Elazar is gone. Kole's Elazar is gone. Dunyarzad's Elazar is gone. Dunyarzad, is it Dunyarzad Nilu wanted to have a party for you in the great hall, in the gathering place where the stage is. And so you got the invitation for the party, but everyone else didn't seem to RSVP yet, so you have to go check in on everyone manually, and so you get to see what everybody's up to afterwards. You get to see what Tanari's up to, Kole's up to, Sino's up to, Dea's up to, and Al-Haitham is up to, and you go and personally invite everybody to the party. Now, when you go to meet Alhaitham, you meet Kaveh, his roommate, who is supposedly going to be another playable character soon. 5-star, 4-star, we don't know. But this blonde guy who has some reputation to him that we do not really know much about, which I think we will talk about in a little bit. But he he is apparently Alhaitham's roommate, and we don't know too much about their relationship other than they fight a lot. And so there's that. And then they have the party. Nahida doesn't have time to physically go attend the party, so she takes over your consciousness, your body, and then she attends the party as you. As herself through you, and so she tells everybody like a personal thank you, um, and it's a really heartwarming moment where everyone is enjoying their victory. Now, you meet up with Nahida later, and she does tell you that she knows a little bit of information, or she has some information regarding your sibling, and that your sibling has no recorded information in Irminsul. So even though everybody, oh no, sorry, I'm sorry, the opposite. So your sibling has information recording in Irminsul, but you do not. And so she assumed that you wouldn't because you're not from this world, and so is your sibling. But so if so, why does your sibling have information recorded in Irminsul? And so this is a great mystery. We find out that you are something that the Fatuis are called descenders, which are people not from this world. And you are the fourth known descender. So you are the fourth known visitor from a different world to come to this world, and that does not include your sibling. So who are these people? We don't know. Is it? Geez, I don't know. We can't even begin to guess right now. But this just implies that there is going to be some, other world, other universe sort of implications when it comes to some characters we might meet in the future and the story going forward, which is really, really exciting. And that's kind of where the quest ends. Now there's more continuation a little bit about like Nahida and what she's doing afterwards in her story quest, which we will talk about next week. But at this point, the quick summary is that you came up with the plan with your friends, you confronted the sages, freed Nahida, defeated Scaramouche, learned a little bit about the lore through Dottore, who was, oh, by the way, never actually gone from. Actually, Dottore left Sumeru, but he reveals, which we knew this from like one of the mangas, but Dottore actually has clones of himself in different stages of his life, and they all act independently, and there was a lot of implication about like how he negotiated with Nahida and how he negotiated with her for the Gnosis and all this stuff. But that Dottore that we saw leaving Sumeru was actually a different Dottore. So just you find that out, and then you find out that Elazar is gone, that you were successful in stopping in curing Irminsul to some degree, and that you are the fourth descender, and that your sibling is significantly more tied to Teva than you are. So lot of story things, lower things in this quest. So before we start getting super into it, so Kahi has prepared a visual for us that has the direct quotes from characters in the story, and we are going to look through those and talk about those and what we think about the story implications. Now, I have a lot of prepared things I want to talk about as well, so we're going to try to do this in a timely manner, but we do have a lot to talk about, and it is very, very interesting, so sit tight. All right, so Kahi, take it away.
All right, so this isn't like all of these very specific quotes, but it just is a particular moment during the speech that is definitely worth talking about. When Nahida was talking with Dottore, and Dottore, puts us to sleep, and he's trying to get the Gnosis from her. She threatens to destroy it, and is the first time she ever brought up a phrase called the heavenly principles. Now, the thing about her using the phrase the heavenly principles in the statement itself, at least in English, heavenly principles are not capitalized, so they're not necessarily people or entities, but they are probably just like effects, kind of like how we use the word God either with a capital G or a lowercase. I don't think it's ever used as a lowercase g, but when you're talking about like heavenly principles, are those like living beings or are those things that are like effects or powers? Now, Dottore, his reaction is a little bit interesting because what does he say? He first reacts, awaken the heavenly principles, and he questions whether it's really possible. So he's interested to some degree, but he also is kind of wary. He knows what they are, obviously, and the doctor can't really decide if he wants to take this gamble, so to speak. But he just kind of takes a step back and he just starts to listen to what Nahida's demands are. So Nahida can't actually use the Gnosis. Now this is an interesting one too because humans have had instances where they can use multiple visions. Because we had Kazuha where he has his animal vision, but when he was, confronting Raiden Shogun, he awakened the electro vision. Even however briefly, he was able to use two. The Archons, however, are limited to only one, so they can't wield more than one in battle. Maybe they can use it in another way, but I mean, he does use the energy or the power of the Gnosis to, get the whole memory of Ruka Devata going, but can't use it in battle. So it's not like she can wield multiple elements specifically, but can use and channel the power some other way. So I thought that was interesting. But Dottore, of course, knows almost just as much, if not just a little more than Nahida, because he then went on to say something about that quote from Scaramouche way back in the day. And that one was, let me see if we can pull it up. Do you know what the rumor that the skies of Tevat are fake? So Scaramouche was the first one to ever say that, like the first big event way in the beginning of, year one Genshin. So Dottore's kind of like showing off his extent of his knowledge at this point. You have the God of Wisdom and a mere mortal having the same amount of information, but Dottore still finds out more. Heavenly principles. Josh, what do you think heavenly principles are?
Okay, so heavenly principles. So this is where I'm going to bring in some research here because this term kind of caught some of us off guard, I think, and so I did some digging and research. So the let's see. So she talks about the being a descendant, right? Like, I mean, sorry, she talks about the world's descenders, right? So can we talk about that first before we talk about the
Yeah.
yeah.
Because that's another phrase that just came up now. This heavenly principles and descenders. And just as like an added note, later on in her dialogue, in her conversation, heavenly principles then became capitalized. So I just thought it was weird that it wasn't capitalized when she first brought it up, but then were capitalized later. I guess maybe the context changed, or maybe it could honestly be a typo. There's actually been several typos throughout this entire
No, but I'm going to tell you why it's not.
Patch. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So this being said, right? The quotes that she says are what does she say? She says, "What if I were to destroy the Gnosis and awaken the heavenly principles?" And it's lowercase. And then Dottore says, "Is that possible?" And then she says, in capitalized, "The heavenly principles have been silent for many years, but the Gnosis are symbols of their control over Tevat and all the laws." And then I assume the heavenly principles wouldn't just stand by and let extensive damage to its laws take place. So that's capitalized heavenly principles. And then later, she says And a very important part of the intel was about this world's descenders, external beings, ones that don't belong in this world. Kahiao. It just says Kahiao in this screenshot. That's funny. You are the Tevat's fourth descender. You are Tevat's fourth descender. And then says that the first descender was the heavenly principles. Okay, so let's look at descender first. So descender is it says here I'm looking at the lore wiki, really hardcore. Descender is a term used by Fatui for outlanders who do not originate from the world of Tevat but come to live within it. The traveler is the fourth person the Fatui have labeled as a descender, and Lesser Lord Kusanali presumes that the entity known as heavenly principles is the first. It appears descenders are not bound by the world's laws and are thus unaffected by circumstances that affect beings from this world. Furthermore, information and memories about them are not recorded in Irminsul, which only collects information about Tevat. Conversely, their memories are not changed when Irminsul is tampered with. For example, only the traveler remembers Greater Lord Rukkhadevata after all traces of her existence were erased from Irminsul, and thus from history and memory itself. This change affects non-sentient items such as books and even Nahida's profile description. Notably, the Fatui did not classify the traveler's sibling as a descender, and despite supposedly coming from the Sea of Stars, their travels throughout Tevat following the fall of Kainria have been recorded in Irminsul. Lesser Lord Kusanali believes this indicates that their sibling originates from Tevat, despite the discrepancy with the traveler's memories. The traveler suspects that this means there's either something wrong with their own memories, or that this world has done something to their sibling. Right? And so there's some few possible candidates for the other three descenders, but I think we'll need more information on that later. But we did actually talk about it before in our lore episode about Alice, where Alice mentions that Aloy is actually from a different world. So if those two people are considered part of the descenders, maybe Alice isn't from this world because she knows about other worlds. There's possibility that they're considered descenders, but we don't know anything about that for sure. Now, the heavenly principles.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So the heavenly principles, it actually goes back to the unknown god at the beginning of the game. The unknown god that takes your sibling, separates you guys, and that gives you a choice. And when the traveler and their sibling are attempting to leave Tevat, the unknown god blocked their path, calling herself the sustainer of heavenly principles in lowercase. She denounced the arrogation of mankind and engaged the twins in battle, and she attacks them. Now, Celestia, the place where the gods reside, Celestia appears to either have established or act in accordance with the heavenly principles, which also means natural order, and is also translated as destiny or the divine. When the unknown god confronts the traveler and their sibling, she calls herself the sustainer of heavenly principles, and the term heavenly principles is often used as a synonym for Celestia. These heavenly principles are also intricately linked to the truth of this world. Erosion, or a person's gradual digression over time, is stated to be part of the natural order. Zhang Li suggests that the erosion that he has suffered was imposed on him by the heavenly principles, quote unquote. And the last thing I'm going to say is, Nahida states that the heavenly principles have been silent since the cataclysm, and theorizes that they may be awakened if a Gnosis were to be destroyed, as the Gnosis symbolizes their control over Tevat and its laws. Okay, so it's all tied together, Descenders, Celestia, heavenly principles. It seems like they're hinting that these things are all intricately connected and connected with the truth of this world of Tevat.
I like this. Yeah, because now you have some sort of a system. You are now aware of a certain type of system, and you now are aware of effects of breaking its system. First prime example is the traveler. So the phrase Tevat and its laws,
right?
The heavenly principles having their natural order of things. Think of it like the laws of physics, the laws of nature,
right?
All right, so you have the traveler who breaks a fundamental law of this particular world of Tevat, and that particular law is to use elemental powers, you have to have a vision. Humans cannot at all unless they have that. So traveler can use it without a vision. That's the one thing that sets him apart around from everyone else.
Right.
Obviously, he is obviously he's a very special exception to a lot of the laws that happen in the world. And then you have another example when he is the only one that is able to remember Greater Lord Rukkhadevata. So the erasure from memory or that kind of data and information somehow cannot affect him. That's another kind of rule break or law break. So you have an occurrence of beings that can break a certain law, and the effect is this. The other descenders, obviously we don't know who they are, but you know now that they should have an ability that breaks a law of this particular world. And that is fascinating because that's more than an elemental power. That's seems like it's more than a god power because you can break a rule of reality, so to speak. So anytime we have a character who seems to work in very mysterious ways, or hey, how did that happen? Because normally it can't happen. Or you have a character who, honestly, it's not even that far fetched that a character can fly. But when something in this particular world happens and it's contradicting all the all the rules that you know of, that's a descender. Now the thing is that the Fatui are the ones bestowing this title. So the Fatui have been probably monitoring this for longer than anyone else has.
Right. Which makes me think they
So
made first contact with one of the first descenders.
Yeah, and remember the harbingers. Their goal is to, as the first harbinger put it, we will seize authority from the gods. I'm starting to try and reinterpret that statement. Seize authority from the gods. Either they want to overthrow the gods, or they want to be able to establish their own laws that contradict the laws of those gods. Maybe not in direct conflict. They just want the authority back. Because say someone's making these rules, someone's making these laws. We want to be able to control that, which makes sense. Why they would, be plotting all of this kind of stuff that go straight into direct contact with all the other archons. Because you have Zhang Li, who made the deal with the Tsaritsa herself. You have Raiden Shogun, who was constantly being like interacted with by Signora. And then you have Dottore, who's basically going straight up against the Dendro Archon, which is Nihida. So all of the other Harbingers obviously are going to try and interact with all the other Gnosis holders, which is the Archons. And somehow that's going to give them enough power to rewrite a law. And that's probably how they're going to seize authority from it. I mean, we could go off into wild tangents about that, but still, the introduction of new verbs and phrases is incredibly great for world building, story building going on into the future, because you're not just letting people catch up to an assumed ending. You're letting them know that no, this goes further. The story will keep going on. The show must go on, and it's a great indicator of a really long future plan. So I love all these little additions, these little seeds they're planting now, because they've been doing it for the past year. They've been doing it ever since the game came out. So I just love knowing, just by all these appearances, that the game has such an intricate plan, and they're not just making stuff up as they go along. They're planting, they're reaping what they sow. They are always going to have more stuff come up and make it feel like it's expected. So, like, if we have heavenly principles, if we have the descenders, and we have, all of the archons and everything, is there a particular phrase that came up that was more interesting to you, Josh? Like, is there anything that you're probably going to be looking at more closely from here on out?
I mean, the just like the Gnosis and like what exactly is it? Not now knowing that it's like because we know that the Archons have a Gnosis, and that has something to do with their power, but they also can operate without them, or it seems like they're because like something about like Venti's body was created by the power of his Gnosis, right? Like we talked about in the Vanessa in the Vanessa lore episode. Venti's body couldn't be healed by normal means, but he could go back to the tree. But because his body was specifically created for him. Um, and then like the archons can operate without their gnosis, as we know from Raiden, Zhongli, and Venti. So what exactly is like the gnosis like, and then now that you find out if you break it, it has to do with like messing up the laws of the world, and like it might call down this heavenly principles, which is like a person or some sort of system. Like it's I'm just really curious like how they interact with gnosis is like, and then what's supposed to happen um when they gather all of them, like what their plan is. Are they going to break all of them at the same time? Like maybe that's their plan. I don't know. Like maybe Dottore made it sound like he didn't know, but maybe he does know. So I don't know. The gnosis thing and this the heavenly principles thing, as well as the skies are fake. I don't think they're going to mention it that often, but definitely interests me whenever they say that.
Keep in mind though, Nahida used that destroying the Gnosis thing as a bluff, because even she didn't know if it would. She said, "I assume that the heavenly principles wouldn't just stand by and let such extensive damage to its laws take place." So the Gnosis is part of the law. That's what I'm reading. That's what I'm interpreting it as. So if that thing were to break, I'm curious, would it? I think it would, because that's a piece directly linking like God to Archon,
Well, like why are they
and like you
collecting
said,
the gnosises, right? Like why are they collecting them? You know?
mhm. Well, in this experiment with Dottore, they're trying to make a god. I'm assuming the people who made that big giant mech were the people from Shnesnaya, or is it Fontaine? Or no, it has to be Shnesnaya, because you have incredible machinists. They're known for making machinery, and then they have things that can channel all of that energy and create a god. If you're trying to, if your mission statement is to seize authority from the gods, you have to have some kind of weapon. You have to have some kind of deterrent for something akin to a god. So if they're accumulating all of them, that should give them enough power to create something to go up against the gods themselves or these heavenly principles. I would assume that makes sense, because if they only made 7, Gnosis, is that the extent of their power? Or are they going to use that 7 to create an 8th? Or are they going to use that 7 to like just change something in the planet or in the world? Or we really don't know. But obviously it can give more than just elemental power, because you have Nahida who used that power to see a memory. But maybe this is just a thematic thing where you have 7 gnosis, 7 elements. Maybe that's just a game thing. But you know that there's powers beyond just that. The
Yeah.
power to transcend time, the power to revive people, or like cross dimensions, stuff like that.
I mean, like I definitely think like I like to think about it through the lens of like it's connected to the Honkai universe, because Honkai has like
I want to believe it. Yeah.
yeah, because it's changed. I mean, they seem thematically connected, and like they've hinted at it being connected, and now they're talking about people from other worlds. And like in Honkai, like I've mentioned before, there's like different elements that are considered like quantum energy and stuff like that. And I'm curious if we'll ever get to a point where we start having, what if they break Tevat's laws and then they just start adding elements, like you know what I mean? Like we'll see what happens, but I think it's really interesting to think about the possibility.
You know what this sounds like though? Based on like all these words and phrases that they're using, you're talking about like authorization. You're talking about um, laws and principles. You're talking about like a framework of a system, and you're talking about rules. It sounds a very script-like. It's very scripted. Did you see someone highlighted when you do Nahida's charge attack?
No.
When she draws that box,
Yeah.
they slowed it down. It's a mouse cursor.
Oh, really?
when the box is drawn, the 3D box is
Oh, like
drawn from like bottom left
the
to top
diagonal
right.
line that goes up.
Yeah, yeah, it looks
Oh,
exactly like a mouse cursor.
oh my god, I see it. I'm actually like I'm in the game
So,
right now, so I see it.
mhm. And it it's also kind of strange that when she does her attacks, it's very blocky.
Yeah, it's very digital
Because
esque.
we have, yeah, because when we have the first interaction with the celestial or with the unknown god, what does her powers look like? Squares, blocks, pixels. So it could. This is most likely wrong. I I'm definitely going off on a wild theory here, but this whole thing could literally be like one of some intricate, some kind of intricate like computer program,
In the
and we're
Honkai
inside of
universe.
it in the Honkai universe. Yes, because Honkai is very digital,
Yeah.
and this one's very not. So if they're trying to seize authority from the god, so to speak, are we trying to like reauthorize ourselves to write our own program? If you look at it, that's kind of what we're doing, or that's kind of what the Fatui want to do. It kind of leads us to our community question later on, but I thought that was very interesting, small little hints. They could mean nothing, but it's just fun little visual effects that kind of lead you to believe that it could be.
Yeah, like what's the implication, right?
But after the whole like talk with Nahida thing, they started to talk more about Fontaine, which is most likely the next place we're gonna go to.
Yeah. Well, it says the
Um,
next space in our journey. Like they just say that straight up.
mhm. Okay, there's so many lines I have to remember. What was that thing about Fontaine? Folklore, yeah. So even then, Folklores will still make herself present at just about every trial. So Fontaine is known for a place with a very strong judicial system. It seems that she just likes to immerse herself in that sort of atmosphere. Generally speaking, the Hydra Archon Folklores won't preside over individual trials. Um, and all she says about her personality is that it's interesting. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's not much to go on about that. But has there any? Do you know of any other instance of the name Folklore?
Yeah. So I'm
To me,
gonna
this is the first time I'm hearing it.
explain that. I wanted to explain that. Okay, I'm just gonna do it now since it's like timing wise. So Fogolor, and I want to go back to like in the story quest, Buer. Like her name is her like god name is Buer,
Oh yeah, the other name.
right? And so if you think about the other gods, do you remember their names?
Morax obviously is Zhongli.
Uh huh.
Um, Venti was Barbados.
Right.
You have Raiden Shogun, whose her personal name is A,
Uh.
but also was either she had a sister, right? So it was Baal and Beelzebub.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And so these names, including Folklore, these are the names of demons in the Ars
Yeah,
Goetia.
I
Like,
know.
yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we hear these across different pop culture stuff, social media. I mean, not social media, media like games and movies and stuff, right? Like there's like the like hell
Mm-hmm.
and this and that and that, right?
Yeah, there's a
And
root. There's a root
right,
inspiration, right, or muse.
exactly. And so we have the supposed names, like in some maybe there is what's it called, like the in-game lore books. Like sometimes they talk about the other gods and things. And so apparently the Pyro Archon is going to be called Aim, like or Aim, like Aym, and the Saritsa is Barnabas. And um, some people have pointed out really interesting things that might be a coincidence, but are most likely not in some way. But so this one I think is a coincidence. Fischl's real name, Amy, is there is also a demon named Amy. But it's a pretty common name, so like I don't know if that has to do with anything, but maybe maybe there's something there. All the other names are not used, except for one really important name that is the name of a demon. So, what's it called? So like I'm looking at like a wiki for the the Ars Goetia, or like the 72 pillars, or the Lemejtan, like the Lesser Key of Solomon. Like these are all names for this like book of demons. Um, and so they have names, like they have titles. So like Duke Barbados, President Buer, um, President or Count Morax. Right? I think they say Count Morax. Actually, I think the boss fight, I think he calls him Count Morax. Um,
Talking about
and
Azdaha?
yeah, Azdaha. I think he says Count Morax in his translation for his subtitles. And then there is, who is it? President Amy, and then there is who is Folklore? Duke Folklore. But there's one really important one I want to tell you about, Kahi. There is.
What is it?
King Paimon.
Are you serious?
Paimon is one of the names
my
of the
God.
demons in the book that uses the same book that all the gods get their name from.
Oh my God.
Paimon is the ninth spirit of the Ars Goetia and the king of hell that is the most obedient to Lucifer. Isn't that great?
That is awesome.
So that's it. All the other NPCs, all the other characters,
too.
right? All the other characters don't share any names with any of the demons so far. So this seems like it was very much done on purpose. But what that implies, we have no idea. We'll see what it means. But I just thought it was super interesting that this is the case. So
I mean, if you want to talk about like crossovers to like other folklore or other mythology, you know, Irminsul, you know, the tree.
Right.
You're familiar with the tree of you're familiar with the tree of Yggdrasil?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the tree of life, tree of beginnings. You know, the main tree that kind of where everything started.
Yep.
There's a root tree, and everything kind of like starts to worship around it.
Right.
But then you also have the whole concept of an eye. So the thing about an eye is obviously used to see. I mean, obviously, but there's a particular one, Odin. Anyways, there's a particular lore. Odin uses. Oh, so you know Odin, Thor, Loki.
Of course. The Norse mythology. Celtic. Sorry, is it Celtic?
Norse. I'm pretty sure. Oh,
maybe it's North.
It's in that same region.
Yeah.
It's Norse. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Norse.
Okay.
But Odin doesn't have. Odin is missing an eye. His eye is actually in another realm.
Right.
And he uses that to see what's going on in that realm. So anyone who uses any kind of like godlike power that uses an eye is looking into this realm from another plane of existence. So Scaramouche was trying to conquer the divine gaze, right?
Okay.
Or at least that's what Dottore wanted him to do. That eye could belong to the god that's been with us the entire time, looking at us from the very beginning. Even like God's Morax's hands, when like one of his character teasers, the hands had an eye on it, and it was watching him. You had the eye on obviously all the electro archons and all the anything dealing with electro is the only element that is visually shown to have cut through reality to see into ours. You even have Sino. Sino's abilities, have an eye always present on your screen looking into this realm. So Odin is the god of what? Thunder.
Oh, I thought you were going to say eyes.
That? No. But, Odin's whole thing is using his eye to see into this reality.
Right.
And it only appears in electric abilities. So we might be meeting an Odin or someone, or there may be another name for Odin somehow. Maybe it's Thor. Who knows? But they're going to be drawing a little bit from Norse mythology as they get closer to, trying to look out of this reality. So if we're already having names coming from this these other established names of demons, and we always have the Yggdrasil tree coming from other kinds of mythology, we can kind of see where the inspiration is being pulled from and kind of draw some conclusions as to why they're using those names and who these other characters are going to be called. You
Right.
can even try to assume their personalities too. But I thought that was a good, interesting connection between like godly powers, the demon names,
Yeah,
the
well, like
implications
what's
of
interesting is like
objects,
they're pulling from so many different um like mythologies for
cultures,
yeah, and
yeah,
cultures for this
folklore,
for this game. And so, of course there's like a, there's an importance in representing it in a fashion that makes sense to those who understand the original inspiration, but so they can also do with it whatever they want. So like, we'll see like how they take these like familiar themes and things across mythology and turn it and make it work for their like Teyvat lore, for their Genshin lore. And I'm really excited to see more of that. Like, you know, more of the lore that we understand in some way, and seeing how it plays out in Genshin. So yeah, super cool.
yeah. So to wrap up on this kind of topic, just a couple of things about the other characters as we are going through our, little victory lap, or as we are going to the toast of celebration. When we met Kaveh,
Hmm.
Alhaitham introduces him and says, "You're the renowned Kaveh, light of the Kasharawar. Besides, as a master builder and craftsman, chances are you'll be appointed as a sage too." The sage part isn't the important part, but the important part is actually the master builder and craftsman. This could be the first character that has a boost to your Serenity pot.
Oh, we have
Because I don't
one
think any
already.
character has any. Which one?
We have one.
I don't. Anything that boosts
Um.
the production of goods in the
Yes.
Serenity pod.
Crafting
I
Serenity.
probably don't have them, most likely. Well, I mean, even if that's not the first, but it would make sense why this person's bonus would be, towards crafting materials or Serenity pot because you're building buildings and, furnishings. But I really
Right.
don't remember if there was another character that had a bonus for furnishings.
Here, Yoimiya. It makes sense why Yoimiya would have it. Duh. My main character.
Oh,
When
okay.
Yoimiya crafts decoration, ornament, landscape type furnishings, she has a 100% chance to refund the portion of the materials used.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I would suspect that Kave would have a similar ability, just
Yeah, I
because
think so.
they clearly say it right from the get go. And speaking of sages, from that statement, Al-Haytham says 4 of the 6 great sages were possessed by the desire for power and attempted to create a new god. They imprisoned the other 2 rational sages. So 2 sages are actually still not that bad, and they're still in prison. Um, so we might be able to see them come out after, since everything's kind of settling down. So not all the sages were bad. 2 sages were kind of rational, or probably more level-headed. They might be making the comeback in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to point out something about Dea. This is really minor, but it's pretty interesting as to like where this mercenary is headed. So Dea said, "When I took this job, I had already decided that I'd quit as soon as you recovered." She's talking to Dunyazard and her Eleazar. But then when she says this next line, "It's time for me to get back out there and chase that horizon." In the game, she is standing on the pier looking out to the ocean, saying, "It's time for me to get back out there and chase that horizon." I think she wants to be a pirate, in which case she might be joining Beto's crew.
I knew you were gonna
Because
say that.
Beto was the first time you saw, the ship, the Crux. Then Kazuha appeared when you went to Inazuma, just before you went to Inazuma. And now we have Dea, who kind of wants to go out there too. Oh my goodness! I think she's recruiting like all of like these people from each region to be
Dude,
to be part of her crew.
Kahi, you're so funny. Cause like I thought about this too, because Beto's like your favorite character, and Dea's like your next favorite character.
She's
So of
great.
course you want them to be
She's
together.
awesome. But it makes sense. There's a line. There's a direct connection now. She's looking at the water, looks at the horizon. She wants to get back out there and just be a free spirit and everything. It makes total sense why she would. She has a claymore. Beto has a claymore. Come on.
Oh my god, you're right.
It's destiny.
Oh my god, so funny. But yeah, we'll see, right? Like, I would love, to see the continuation during her story quest, right? When she comes out as a character. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. Anything about the story that really really resonated with you? Anything that you really really want to look forward to in the future?
I don't know about like look forward to like everything. I've pretty much said most of the things that I'm really excited for. Obviously, I'm super excited for Fontaine, which is going to tie into the community question that I've set up for this week. But um, Kave's background. I'm really interested in that. I was just kind of browsing through the wiki, and maybe we can do an episode on Sumeru and on the academia because there's so much information on the academia that I was not aware of. They have the names of everybody that's part of the six darshans and part of the six great sages and all this stuff. And I think it'd be really cool to talk about that and get some context on Sumeru for us. Um, I'm curious how much. I'm assuming that like that we're gonna do because usually there's like one or two interlude quests before we move on to the next Archon quest. So I'm really curious if like Kave is gonna be like a main player in this quest, so that we can get to know him. And you know what like just curious about whatever's gonna happen next. Like because obviously Scaramouche is gonna be part of it. I think Scaramouche, and I think by the way, I forgot to mention this. I think actually I did mention this to you, but like Farazan is said to be a machinist. Like that's what they said in her
Yeah, I remember that.
official drip marketing thing. So I think that she is straight up from Fontaine. She's gonna be like kind of like our Kazuha, which was like the first character from a region we haven't been to yet. I guess Tartaglia's technically that too. Um, but like right before Inazuma came out, we got Kazuha, and then now it's like before Fontaine's coming out, we might get Farazan, and um, I'm really excited to see some of that like different style, like using machines and stuff and fighting is going to be really cool. So yeah, so we'll see. I'm really excited about Fontaine, and I'm really excited about finding out more about Kave and what happens what happens to Scaramouche during the interlude quest. So yep, pretty cool. So thanks Kahi
Mm-hmm.
for the quotes and for preparing the keynote. Now, so much story stuff to talk about. You know, we could keep going forever. I mean, there's so much speculation, but we'll, you know, split it up into more podcast episodes for sure. So keep listening if you're interested in the story. Let us know. Tweet at us. What was your favorite part of the Archon quest across all of Sumeru? Did you like the Sub-Zero's festival? I know a lot of people didn't, but I thought it was pretty interesting. I've these cutscenes like when you're fighting Scaramouche, so good. The boss fight is pretty fun, very interesting, very different. Also, it is co-op, so I didn't think it was going to be co-op at the beginning, but it's great because everybody gets their own little Akasha Neo Akasha terminal, and so yeah, there's so many cool things to look forward to in the future. If this quest is an indication of where they're going with the story, I think from here it's gonna get crazy. I really think that like we've opened up the door to like really interesting, intricate story plot lines that are gonna all tie in together, hopefully in a really satisfying way, at some point. And I think that this game is gonna go on for a really long time, and it's gonna keep changing. Like again, if Honkai is any indication, they know what they're doing, and I think I'm really excited for it because this game has so much potential. So yeah, so that is our Archon Quest discussion. Thanks so much for listening. Now let's move on to our last segment, the community question discussion. So last week we talked about with what we know so far, do you think the Harbingers are good or evil, and why? Now, Kahi, what is your theory on whether we think the Harbingers are good or evil?
Ultimately, the phrase "good and evil" is always going to be subjective because what's good for this particular person can be bad for another particular person. But it's what are their intentions? Okay, now are their intentions good, and does that make them good or bad? I I am truly on the side of the harbingers are on the side of humanity, which was what makes them good. But obviously, there are a lot of villains who take that wrong route with the best of intentions and end up leaving a lot of, collateral damage in their wake. So I'm on the side of them being good because the only way they know that we can win is to do all of what they're doing right now, which kind of sucks for a lot of people who are caught up in it, but that's the only thing that they that's the only way that they know that we can, rise above the level of those gods and the you know heavenly principles and all that. So I'm gonna think they know what they're doing because they've been in touch with all this stuff way before we have. So it may look evil to us now, but until we learn what they know, we might actually end up working with them. I mean, it's not the first time like the good guys ended up working with the bad guys eventually because now when they come to an agreement, then yes, we know that we can't just keep fighting. We'll just cease fire and we'll help you. That's kind of where I think it's going. So I think they're ultimately good because they genuinely want what's best for humanity, even though they kind of want to position themselves at the top of it all as they go into their plans. So yeah, I think they're good. If I had to classify it, yeah, probably good.
Nice. For me, I think that they've kind of painted the Fatui to be bad guys in general. But whether the harbingers themselves are good or evil might be like a totally different thing. Obviously, we've sympathized with Child, with Scaramouche, and even Signora to a degree. But I think that most of them are gonna be painted in some like good misunderstood picture. I'd be really curious to see if Dottore ends up being like on the side of humanity because he really feels like he's like kind of selfish and that even like what he's already done has been really selfish. Um, and so and we still don't know if the gods are considered good or evil like in the end actually, but um, I think that there will be some harbingers who we probably won't get to play as and are probably just evil. And then I think that we will see some backstory to some of these characters. I really want to play as Arlecchino. I really want to play as Columbina. I really want to play as the
Yeah.
El Capitan. I actually want to play as
Oh, El
Dottore, but
Capitan. Capitano.
since I hear rumors of like Dottore being a playable character, I feel like he might be a good guy. Like they might. Oh, that's right. My theory for Dottore was that there is good Dottores because there's so many
Yeah.
Dottores.
There's
So
one of them. One of
yeah,
them
at
is out
least one
there.
of them is gonna
Yes.
be like on our
Hmm.
side, and or at least like it aligns with us more so than on the Saritsa. And so I think that this Dottore will help us against the other Dottores and even maybe the Harbingers in general. So that's why I think Dottore like can have both good and evil. But for most of them, I think most of them are gonna be good, but some of them are not gonna be good. I think some of them are just gonna be straight up evil, and because you gotta have some antagonists, right? Like I don't know if they're. I would say that they're just a group of good guys. Like even in the end, after we learn all their stories, I feel like I wouldn't say they're a group of good guys. But everybody has their own thing. So maybe they're victims of circumstance, kind of like Child. But we'll see. So
It'd be
yeah.
hilarious
Oh wait, tell me, tell
if
me.
they bring if it'd be hilarious if like they bring a version of Dottore into the game that's like the tiny child version, and he'll
No,
be like the only tiny child male character,
that'd be
and then
so
you can't
funny.
help but feel bad for him. Like you can't just give a character who's mean to Nahida and put him on a banner because no one's gonna want to roll for him because they don't like his character. They've always positioned banner characters in such a way that you like them. So how do you make people like Dottore after he's done all this? Well, you introduce the cute chibi version,
Oh my god, no, dude,
and
no,
then
no.
there you go. Make him a child Claymore user.
Uh, there was like one of the things is that a lot of people are really hoping for was like more tall guys. So like
Every one of them.
yeah,
Yeah, they have the same stature.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, it's cool.
I
They're
think
cool guys, but
yeah, I just
still.
think that I want to see like as much variation as possible, I guess. So, for me it's either way, but I think that Dottore would probably like maintain his look. So like his like blue hair, tall guy look, but um yeah, I think you have to be a different kind of character to be like a chibi. So, but I would love to see a chibi boy character. That'd be really interesting. Um so yeah, so let's move on to some of these community answers. So, what do we know so far? What do you think? Harbinger's good or evil? So Primo Gem is God, says good. Looks are everything. If they look good, they're definitely good. All right. I, I
I can't
mean,
argue with that
I
because when
mean,
you saw Zhang Li, he's a mortician and he's wearing black, but he looks good and he turned out to be a good guy. So yeah, that's sound logic.
what's that? Okay. All right. I'm not gonna say anything. Moving on. Dendro Femboy Febs. I mean, dot dot dot. They're kind of Fatui because child is Fatui, so Fatui equals bad and bad equals evil. Happy face. Yeah, see, sound logic right there too, Kahi. What are you gonna say about that?
Exactly. Yeah. Every step of that phrase was perfect. I
Oh,
have no idea where that was going, but
I have no issue
that
with this.
there is logic.
So
There is
basically
logic to
saying that
this.
child is bad also. All right. So
Yep.
the traveler says, "I treat the harbingers like I treat child. Annoying because you have to fight them, but can be good if they tried." P.S. Do you think that every element will get their own area on the map? Hashtag down under. Nice.
Good eye, mate.
Oh, good eye. So, um, I treat the harbingers like I treat child, and I say that. Okay, so they could be good if they tried. I like that. Like it's kind of like we again with this with child as an example of like us being sympathetic toward their backstory. Like if they want to help, they can, but maybe they're helping the Saritsa for their own reasons. So, and maybe if we get rid of those reasons, or maybe we get rid of the Saritsa's influence, maybe they'll join us, right? Like maybe if we say like we have something enticing for them to join our side, um, then they might just join us. So we'll see. But I mean, the whole thing is loyalty is a thing, but who knows? Like we don't know how they got together. We don't know what the circumstances are. So, um, but Child seems to be really, what is it? Like Child seems to be really keen on helping the Tsaritsa attain her vision. Isn't that right? Doesn't he say like he wants to help the Tsaritsa?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they helped him and his family, so he feels like a sense of responsibility to pay them back, but also a sense of loyalty because he's a free spirit, wandering spirit, but he has something to still be his guiding light. So I don't know what kind of relationship that is to the Saritsa, but he does he is loyal because he feels obligated to, but doesn't focus on that obligation as his reason.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so we'll see how that ties in later once we actually encounter him again in the story, maybe even in his, harbinger position. Like maybe we fight him on the other side. But he's still on our team, so that'd be really funny. So, this PS, do you think every element will get their own area on the map? Yeah, it's assumed that like we'll get all the nations, we'll go to all the nations of the 7 elements that we have so far. So, I think we will get our own area on the map for everything. So we'll see how it goes. And I like the hashtag down under. So great, great. Um, Next is Griffles. Their chaotic disturbances would be classified as evil. However, they act with blind loyalty to the Tsaritsa. Also, they are likely in the dark of the Tsaritsa's true end goal and are just agents of chaos. What do you think about that,
I
Kahi?
believe that.
Yeah, I believe that too.
I believe that because the main harbinger I mean, if you didn't already know this, we had an episode like where we were talking about the inspiration for the harbingers. All of their names come from this particular performance troupe in Europe. Um and like the names Pulcinella, Arlecchino, Tartaglia are those names of those members of the group. Um I forget that the I forget what this was, but there's a YouTuber by the name of Marco Meatball. Please look at his channel, people. If you're listening to this, that guy is a great. He's a ex opera singer, and he has like incredible knowledge about like symphonies and orchestras and music. So he was talking about like the character that the first Harbinger is based off of is actually known for being slightly gullible and also slightly easy to manipulate. So I do like this particular statement by Griffles. Like, although they are likely in the dark, also they are likely in the dark of Saritsa's true end goal. They are just agents of chaos. Yeah, I totally believe that. I just if the Saritsa is planning to just leave all the harbingers like down here while she ascends to godhood, while under the guise of trying to take over authority from the gods, that could be a really great betrayal. Because I want to know how the Saritsa would end up, meeting her end. Because are all the harbingers going to turn against her, and then that's when they become good on our side? That'd be great. But yeah, I totally believe this.
Yeah, maybe she'll do something to reveal her true nature, and then they'll all turn against her at the same time. Who knows? Um, so Sam says, I think that kind of depends since all the ones we've met so far have tried to kill you, but Child is nice to you, but also, uh, assigners? Maybe Senora?
Senora.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that autocorrected.
Yeah.
Senora.
So, Child is nice to you, but also Senora seems to have no respect for human life. Yeah, she was kind of like, you know, cold. I mean, that's her thing, but like she was definitely, when she got venti and the way she talked, I think it was hard to see her as like a good guy character in any way, but then you find out like through her demise ultimately that she had her own hardships that she went through and her own reasons, but we'll never know supposedly. We will never know from her at least like why she did what she did or why she was there. So um not like in detail. So we'll see what happens. But because I think like it's about like she lost a lover or something like that, right? Um, I don't know.
Ooh, I
I'll
don't know about
yeah.
that,
I'll look it up
but
later, but
she,
she she
yeah.
she like I know this like she doesn't want to be called a witch and all this stuff. So um, it was pretty sad from what I remember. I remember the emotions, not the story. So um,
The time.
yeah, semantics, right? So, Lex Ludho again, hello, welcome, says evil, but only pawns of greater evil, even beyond the Saritsa, who I think is just amorally trying to establish,
Amorally, yeah.
yeah, trying to establish global Sneznayan dominance. So, basically trying to establish global Sneznayan dominance at all costs. Whatever she has to do. Um, Pawns of a greater evil beyond the Saritsa. That's interesting because Saritsa is painted as the top bad guy right now. There is potential for Celestia, some beings within Celestia, to be considered bad guy, which is why Saritsa's going against them in the first place. But Saritsa right now is the one we're trying to stop, as well as the Abyss Order and all this stuff, right? Because we still have the Abyss Order, and technically your sibling is the leader, is what we understand, and then Saritsa is leader of Sensnaya and the Fatui. So, and those are the two groups that are constantly we are fighting against. So, I think that that's interesting to think that she's being controlled by someone else, because I think we're just not even that far yet. We haven't even met her yet, so it's kind of hard to imagine that there's an even greater evil behind the curtain. But what do you think, Kahi?
I mean, I wouldn't doubt that there's always going to be a greater evil above just who we're thinking now because we're only seeing like what we can see from our perspective and the effects from all the people that are within our vicinity, even if they're like countries away. But what about the countries further than that? We don't know how they're interacting with the rest of the world, so it is plausible that there is someone controlling even the Tsaritsa. But I I kind of doubt it because that seems to be too many levels of control. Like, you know, like for example, if the harbingers are being controlled by the harbingers, top three harbingers are being controlled by the Tsaritsa, and the Tsaritsa is being controlled by someone else. It doesn't feel. I mean, from a writing perspective, it seems uh, kind of plain. Like if you just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, like eventually people are gonna get tired of that story. Like if you kill the bad guy, and then just like, oh hey, he was working for me, and you kill that guy. Oh, he was working for me, and you kill that guy. Oh, he's working for me. I just there's a level of repetition that you need to eventually stop and just completely go in a different direction. It's kind of the reason why a lot of animes have like arcs, or like a lot of stories have arcs, because there's a big ongoing story in the background, but let's focus on this one for now. And then once that's done, let's see how we kind of tie it back into that big main story. I
Yeah.
I genuinely hope Sarita isn't under control over someone, because I think it could have been way more, I guess, meaningful when we meet that bad guy. But
Yeah.
yeah,
We'll see.
like
We'll see
it
what
still
happens.
could
I
be.
mean, I think that it's possible for sure. So, nice prediction, Lex Luthor. Let's come back in 5 years and see if it's correct. um, let's see. I honestly don't think we're gonna get to Snezhnaya for like 3 more years or something, 2 more years maybe. Because
I'm starting to believe that. I didn't
yeah,
believe it before, but I'm starting to believe it now.
yeah, it's 2 years. We're at the fourth nation, and there's still so much stuff going on in the story, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll see. We still have plus we don't know, like our journey could be totally interrupted. We could think that we're going like, okay, we're gonna go to all the nations, but then maybe something happens and we get thrown off that path. um we'll see. So okay, so next is Peachy on Genshin. Good intentions, but our perspective is them looking bad and circumstances make them look bad, and they're also doing it in a bad way, like stealing Gnosises. They could have always communicated with Archons. So I mean, funny enough, like was it like Saritsa did negotiate with with Zhongli and got his
Yeah,
Archon. I mean his Gnosis,
exactly.
right?
Perfect example.
So clearly
Hmm.
they've done stuff, but maybe Venti didn't want to give up his, and so they took it. And Raiden gave hers away, I believe. But yeah, I think we'll see what's happening. But everybody's operating in a totally different way. I think like you have, like Dottore versus Senora, like versus the Balladeer. Like the way that they operate is all totally different. So
But I like how there's definitely been instances where they tried diplomacy first,
right, yes,
because
they're not all just
I think
destroying everything.
mm, I think the exception was Senora, because when Senora first showed up with in front of Venti, she just challenged him in a way, because it's easy to kind of understand that she would get irritated by Venti's personality. But Zhang Li specifically said that he made a deal with the Tsaritsa, not Senora. Senora was just there to pick it up. So they have they know that they don't need to use force. Even in the case of Dottore didn't just attack Nahida. Him and his all arrogance. He just decided to walk up straight to her and just start talking, and just he is selfish because he wants to gain knowledge himself. So they're not all bad. They just have very strongly contrasting motives.
Yeah, I mean the first time we're basically introduced to the Fatui is when Senora does that. So it gives us this really really evil impression of the Fatui, but then we meet Child and we're like, oh, this guy's a Fatui, but he is also number 11. So it's pretty low on the on
Mm-hmm.
the on the chain. So that could be related in some way. But okay, let's see. All right, and so our last comment is from username kick underscore the underscore baby. So we don't condone this behavior,
We are
but
not condone. No.
yes. But so this user says, I think they're good because I don't like the unknown god, and she's probably from Celestia, and Fatui fights Celestia, so I'm with Fatui. Smiley face. So yeah, like how the unknown god plays into this, like we talked about the unknown god a little bit earlier, how she plays into this, and Celestia, and exactly how they're connected, and then how Fatui is against Celestia, or at least the Saritsa is against Celestia and the idea of Celestia and the gods. Um, how that fight's going to turn out is going to be really interesting. Whether like we're going to be are we going to be taking sides? Is there going to be sides like Fatui fighting Celestia? If you think of that as the two sides, so where do we fit into that? Because we're not with either I mean, we're kind of technically with helping gods, but if we find out that the reason that they're fighting Celestia is for a good reason, then who knows where we will support in when the time comes. So we still have a lot of characters to meet, a lot of story to go through before we get to that point. So I'm really curious to see if this comes true in any way. What about you, Kai?
I am now really trying my best not to dislike a character from the first time I see them, because they could turn out to be a really cool character, or they could turn out to be, on our side, or they could have a complete cosmetic change, like how Scaramouche is now the Wanderer and is a completely different element.
Different color, everything.
So I now know that that is possible, and that they could have a change of heart as well as a change of drip.
Change of drip?
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened to Scaramouche? Oh, he had a change of drip.
Yeah. Change of drip. I just came up with that too.
That's good. I like that.
I'm gonna be a little bit more open-minded. I don't want to say everyone's a bad guy. I mean, even the Sarita, I'm convinced that she's not gonna be like just ultimate evil.
Yeah,
maybe she just genuinely wants to do something for a reason.
I mean, I would love to be able to play as all the Archons. You know what I mean? Like, if possible. So,
yeah,
we're gonna need some sympathy on her side if we're gonna be able to play as her, because I don't think because the way that the people in your party interact with you, it's like they're your friend. You can't just like put bad guys in your party. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. So great. So guys, thank you so much for answering our community question from last week. And as always, if you want to keep answering, feel free to. If you want to tweet at us your thoughts and your discussion, feel free to as well. As far as the next community question for next week, what kind of character do you want Focolars, the Hydro Archon, to be? Share an example if possible. So the only thing we don't know much about the Hydro Archon. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody that hasn't finished the story, but we have an idea that she's like different, eccentric, weird. So we have this kind of impression, knowing that Fontaine is sort of a steampunk-ish old version of France. Like, if you have any interesting ideas for what she could be like, she's also like there's also like a court system there, and they have like, she's kind of like the grand judge in a way, the grand justice. And so what kind of character would she be? I'm really curious to hear from you all what you think and what you want her to be, maybe even. So that is it for today. That wraps up the show. As always, thanks for listening. If you have time, please leave us a comment and a review. We'd really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you are listening. Follow us on Twitter, once again, at Genshin Guys Pod. Kahi, where can they find you?
KAHIYAO, pretty much everywhere. And Genshin Guys Pod. Definitely send us some questions. We really like answering your questions too, because we post our questions to you a lot, but I mean, it's great whenever you send us a question, because it gives us another thing to talk about, another great discussion out of it. So yeah, feel free to send us questions our way.
Yeah, send us some questions, as well as follow me on Twitch. I stream pretty regularly, twitch.tv/jside. I would love to get, maybe I'll announce this a little bit earlier in the podcast next week, but I would love to get to 30 followers from this podcast to do a special Genshin in real life stream of me showing off all the Genshin things I've gotten here while in Japan. I've been to the events, I've been to the cafes, I have a bunch of stuff I would love to share with you all, some of the stuff I got in the experience, but I would love to make that I would love to do that after reaching my goal of 30 followers. So I will post more information about that, and I will talk more about it next podcast. But hopefully see you soon. Follow my Twitch channel if you see me. Say hi in the chat. Whether or not the followers come from this podcast, or whether or not they just show up, I'm gonna do it anyway. So please come by and stop by, say hi, and follow if you have the time. All right. So that's the end of our podcast. And as always,
Ad Astra Abyssos.
星と支援を目指せ